Good afternoon, Ben, Aaron. Great to have you. Great to have you here today. Thanks for agreeing to do this. Um, we are well aware that you are ambassadors for the club's equality and diversity strand. And as part of the piece today, what we're going to do is have a conversation revolving around Black trailblazers in society. And I think this is a really, really good discussion to have. I want to actually, first of all, start off by saying, guys, we're doing well this year. We are.
It's going well at the minute, so we need to.
It's going really, really well.
Keep it up. Keep it up.
I'm absolutely gutted that as fans we can't be in the stadium. I don't want to jinx it, but you know, keep up the good work. We're really proud of the stuff you guys are doing on the pitch. So well done for that.
Cheers, man. Thank you very much.
And especially individually as well, your performances have been really good. So keep making us proud, onwards and upwards on that. So basically, what we're going to do, like I said, is talk a bit about some of these Black trailblazers, and I'll give you a bit about my experiences, and you guys can share a bit about your experiences as well. So I'm going to kick off, and I'm going to speak about one of our inventors that we've got here. And that is a lady called Mary Van Britten Brown. Okay, and Mary is an African American. She was an African American nurse, and what she did in 1966 was actually invent the first sort of home security system, which she built for her own home. So what her background story was, she was a nurse living in New York, and while her husband was away, she kind of felt very unsafe because of the high rates of crime in the area. And she created a device that would help kind of put her mind at ease. And, you know, home security systems commonly that are used today have taken a lot of various elements from her design. So that's the first name kind of that in terms of our inventors and stuff. I'm not sure if any of you have heard of her before. I only kind of came across her recently. But when I found out that she had created that, I was like, wow, you know, what a useful, you know, design that a lot of people use nowadays. And obviously, given the fact that you guys are professional athletes, I'm pretty sure you've got some home security systems in your house.
You need it nowadays, yeah.
Yeah. So, and like I said, a lot of them, I think her initial design kind of did base around a camera and some sort of two-way communication system where people could speak across each other, and then also like an emergency button that people could press to call the authorities. So that was our first Black trailblazer. I'm going to open the floor up to you. Maybe we'll start with you, Ben, and anybody that you want to speak about in particular.
One I could remember from the end of primary school, starting in secondary school, would be Barack Obama.
Yeah,
I think like that's Martin Luther King and Nelson Mandela a bit before mine and Cress's time. So that one sticks out for me, is really powerful, as he was the first president, the first Black president of the United States. And I can imagine, firstly being Black, all the things he would have had to go through in politics, and even getting into the office and getting into a high place in politics would have been extremely tough. And you see, not many people do it. So I think for me, that's one that sticks in my head from a political point of view, but I have a few on the sport as well.
Absolutely. And I know you said you were in, I mean, I remember when he became president, because that was maybe just over 10 years ago now. So I was slightly younger than I am now. I was at university, but I couldn't believe it. You know, as a Black man myself, I was like, wow, a Black man has actually become the leader of the free world. And I think what that symbolized, you know, for Black people, not just in America, but across the globe, and especially in the Western world, where a lot of us are minorities, it was a real sort of beacon of hope. And it was kind of proof that it could be done. And just the way I think he's carried himself over the 8 years that he's been there, with, you know, the utmost class, no matter how difficult things got. Yeah, he's been an absolute ambassador for you know, for a lot of young Black people out there, and in terms of their hopes and aspirations. So Barack Obama is definitely something I can identify with. Aaron?
Obviously, the mum, as you say, there was one of, you know, certainly even when I was growing up, I'm a little bit older than John, but yeah, he was one, as you said there, affected a lot of, you know, give a lot of people hope, and a lot of, you know, as you say, he was a really respectful man. And I think, you know, looking now, I think people are still looking to, you know, still be in charge. But from I think from sporting, you know, side of it, I played Samuel Rovers, it was, you know, 12 years ago now, and I had John Barnes, who was manager at the time, for a short time. And I remember, you know, some of the conversations he used to talk to about the lads, you know, it's got a lot easier over the years. But I think when he was at Watford, I think it might have been, in his early stages at Liverpool, you know, he had a tough time with it. And, you know, you look at him still to this day fighting the course, and, you know, he speaks really highly of it. So I think John Barnes is, yeah, certainly at the forefront of it, and fighting the right course, I think.
Absolutely. And I mean, John Barnes has become a real sort of pivotal figure in a lot of the conversation around racism, not just in football, but just in
I think he's
society as a whole.
Yeah, not just, as you say, there, not just football. He's, you know, you see him on, I think it's GMTV and stuff, on this morning shows, and you know, he speaks really well with us. So I think he's very good at it, very good.
Yeah. And even staying on sport as well. I mean, some of the other names that come to, I was thinking about this the other day. I was having a chat with some of my friends, and we were talking about when we grew up, who were some of the Black players that we really looked up to. And for me, and a lot of them are kind of like still in the media now or doing podcasts, but over the last of the more recent ones, I'll say Rio Ferdinand was like our guy. Like when we grew up, Rio was our guy, man. He was from Southeast London, so he's from a similar background to, you know, a lot of young Black people from certain social economic backgrounds, and still the way he carries himself now, top in a top class way. So Rio was definitely our guy, and Ian Wright as well. If you go back a bit further back, Ian Wright was another one that we kind of, the early sort of memories for us was like, yeah, Ian Wright and Rio. You want to be like Ian Wright, you want to be like Rio Ferdinand when we sort of grow up, because they were just so cool, and just the levels that they got to in their career, especially I would say with Ian Wright, given that he started playing in the 80s and 90s, and the certain things he would have had to deal with in football at the time, where racism was very, very rife, especially coming from the stands and what have you. It was just a brilliant character all around, and still.
I think also, is back then, you know, maybe now you've got social media, Twitter, Instagram, you know, you hear about a lot of things that happens, but I think, as you say there, when Ian Wright was, you know, in the 80s and the 90s, this wasn't even around, and so the stuff that he'd had to deal with, you know, behind the scenes that a lot of people wouldn't know, to still then go onto the pitch and perform the way he did and carry himself the way he did. He was, you know, he's a real character, and yeah, it must have been, you know, as you say, they're really hard for them.
Absolutely. And that also made me even think to myself that, but by the time in another 10 or maybe not 10 years, maybe another 15 to 20 years now, that conversation is going to revolve around, I don't know, the Raheem Sterlings, the Marcus Rashfords, and what have you, because people are still going to have, it's going to be exactly the same thing that maybe kids who are maybe about 9 or 10 now are going to be feeling about those players, and what they meant to them at that time as well. So sport was really a big one. In terms of my next person that I'm going to speak on, again, this is going to be another inventor, and this was Madam C.J. Walker, who was the first African-American woman to become a self-made millionaire after creating a line of hair products geared towards Black women. And there is a film about it. I'm not sure it's a film or series about it on Netflix at the moment, which is actually really good. And I mean, anybody, and I'm pretty sure as well, Ben, you'll be able to understand this as well, having Black relatives or aunties or sisters and stuff, how difficult it can be to maintain, for Black women to maintain their hair, in terms of the hairstyles that they have and what have you. And it's difficult now in terms of the products that are available in the mass market, which are not available to Black women, let alone what Madam Walker had back then. And she came up with a product that made it a lot easier for Black women to maintain their hair. Do you have any? Have you heard sort of experiences of that before, Ben?
He needs some of that product because he's got a dead tune at the minute.
Barbers ain't open. If it was open, I'd be sharp. Don't judge me. Don't judge me. Yeah, obviously, of course, my relatives, use product. Like my mum really tries to be natural. She's going a bit grey now, so she doesn't really use much products at the minute. But yeah, definitely, I think as our hair is different, I know a person who would get stick like in school by the teachers, and because their hair was extravagant and things like that. But that's how it grows, you know. So yeah, I think just being different is cool. And I guess some people can't really accept that. And as you're saying about the inventor, I didn't believe how many Black inventors invented so many important things. So just doing your research, and even me not knowing any of this, is just like amazing.
Yeah, I would agree as well. And like you said, I think the key thing you said is being different is cool. And I think that just being able to express yourself without being judged, whether it's for your hairstyle, the type of hair you have is very different. I remember when I started growing my hair, my mum was absolutely terrified. She was like, "What are you going to go to work and do?" I was like, "Mum, I'm going to go to work and be good at my job. That's what I'm going to do." But like I said, that's just a society we live in, and sometimes when people don't understand things as small as hair texture or different hairstyles, it can sometimes be portrayed in a negative light. But it's about having the confidence to do that, regardless of what your background is, in things as small as like understanding, like I said, that the mass market understanding a bit more about Black people's hair, etc. So yeah, so that was Madam Walker. Any other names that you guys want to touch on in terms of people, Black trailblazers that have inspired you?
I think Lewis Hamilton, certainly, in this day and age, is the best Formula One, arguably the best ever. He's still really young, and he's another one who's at the at the front of it, really fighting the course, and to dominate pretty much the F1, and then still have time to do the stuff he does, whether it's on social media, whether it's attending events, anything. He seems to be doing the right thing away from the track. So certainly for me, I think he's a real icon.
Yeah, Lewis has had a great career, to be honest, and he just seems to be getting better and better. So I agree that Lewis is definitely up there, extremely inspirational. Ben, anybody else?
I think one who is very similar to Lewis is Serena Williams. I watched a documentary a couple of weeks ago, and it was frightening how similar they are. As you know, tennis and Formula One, you rarely see a Black face playing and racing. It's only been Serena, her sister, and maybe a few other Black players who play. And it's just weird how from young, like I would hear Lewis Hamilton speak, and he'd say like how people would just look at him in the paddock and give him stick and be racist to him, and that's at a very young age with his dad. And I couldn't imagine something happening like that to me. And the same with Serena when she first played on the tour, like the whole of the US Open were booing her, and that's her home fans.
Tennis as well is like a tough. It's it's kind of looked at as a rich sport, as a
exactly.
Serena being from I think it was Compton. One of the roughest areas in America. In that time, and as John said there, I think it must have been really hard at times for it. So to I think it was 30 odd Grand Slams, or I might be wrong there, whatever she's won, at the top of a game, and one of the best ever women tennis players is frightening.
Yeah, completely agreed. And touching on some of the points you're saying about Black people being in sports which are perceived as being rich people's sports, like you've got Tiger Woods, obviously, from the in terms of golfing, Lewis Hamilton as well, and Serena and Venus Williams. So those 3 or 4 different people have been quite isolated in their career in terms of the people that they've competed against, which is very difficult. And sometimes, you know, being in that space where you are the only black person can be very difficult in terms of trying to blend in socially and what have you. But for them to still have been at the top of their game, being the best in their field, really, is of proper testament to their character, to be honest. So that was some really good examples there. Another person, again, I'm pretty sure that's inspired myself and all of us, is Michael Jordan, who is, I mean, I have these conversations all the time. I'm a LeBron fan. Okay, I'm LeBron's my guy because he's from our generation. So I'm just like, LeBron's my guy. But Michael Jordan, his impact is, I mean, I'm watching that documentary on Netflix, The Last Dance. I was like, wow.
Powerful.
Wow. You know, I think, and you guys will understand this as professional athletes, what it takes on a day-to-day basis to be the best. I don't think a lot of people actually really understand it until you watch a documentary like that and realize that you can't be in that position by luck or by fluke or by, you know, it takes a very obsessive work ethic and, you know, desire daily to be the best. And I think that's what his documentary really showed.
Yeah, I think that documentary, you know, the one thing that stood out for me, Ade, was like, you know, he'd go into work every day, and it wasn't about just him. Do you know what I mean? He was pushing others to be, you know, the best that they could be. And as you say, for him to go into that with a mindset of, you know, I might be the best player, but you're going to be the best version of what you can be. And I think you look at the, you know, the stuff they did. You know, they were arguably underdogs in some of the seasons, and yeah, the way he carried himself was frightening. And yeah, that documentary is powerful.
Yeah, have you seen it as well, Ben?
Yeah, I loved it. Literally, I couldn't wait to watch it. It was only 2 a week, wasn't it? So
yeah.
That was my lockdown sorted. But yeah, just touching on what Chris said, like for him to, how unbelievable, it's not my time, but how unbelievable he was to retire and then go and play baseball and then come back.
Yeah.
And then like to do that. Like, to do that is just like, I don't even know what to say.
Yeah. I think one of my big questions that I had by the time I finished watching the whole series was, would I have wanted to be on his team? And I mean that in a way of course you would have won stuff, but he would make your life hell.
Yeah, 100%. But I think if you look back now at some of you ask some of them players, and you know, you take the cameras and the media away, I think if you deep down ask them the question, okay, they might not have enjoyed it, but did he make them a better player? The mindset, the ability, you know, to go in every day, the concentration to work every day and become better. I think some of them players wouldn't have reached the heights they reached without him in the squad. Do you know what I mean?
I agree. And Steve Kerr was that person, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Steve Kerr, who then obviously went on to become a coach, a very successful coach himself. But he was one of those players who was like an average player, and then you know, Mike was like getting onto him, and he had.
I think he even says that, doesn't he? I think he says that. He mentions it about in the documentary.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's Michael Jordan. Bringing it up to date a bit more. I think another good name to speak about is Alex Scott, who is a former Arsenal ladies player. Had a very successful career now, and she's come on leaps and bounds and is now doing some brilliant work in the media as well. So I think she's really been a really good trailblazer in the black community in terms of some of the things she's doing at the moment. And I think what I really like about Alex Scott is that it's not just, oh, well, she's a female presenter. Like, she's actually really knowledgeable. Yeah. And her punditry is really, really first class. You know, so I think Alex Scott for me is somebody. Have you guys managed to see a bit of her stuff? Or I'm pretty sure you guys watch like Sky Sports and stuff when you're like, chance and stuff. But yeah, she's really knowledgeable. And
yeah, no, definitely, as you said there, Ade, she's you know, the knowledge of the game. You know, you know, she's a female. You know, as a knowledge of the actual game. You know, you listen to her; she speaks really well. Obviously, understands the game a lot, and I think she you know, she went through a hard time when she first come on the scene, and you know, obviously it was unfair. But if you know, certainly for me and Jono, you know, understand football and work in football. You know, some of the fans, you know, when they listen to her might not agree with her, but you know, for me, from my experience in football, when she talks, you know, you're listening, and she speaks really well.
Brilliant. And just keeping the conversation there in terms of Black female trailblazers as well. Growing up, I'm a big fan of music myself, huge fan of music. I'm sure you guys are as well. So I grew up on the Beyoncés of this world. Oprah Winfrey again, who's also in entertainment as well, and just some of the legacy that they've left behind. So I know I realized you were smiling there, Aaron, when I said Beyonce. I wasn't dancing. I wasn't
I was
dancing
just interested to why you said she was the first one. I thought you were going to say like Drake or someone, or do you know what I mean? Someone like what we'll listen to. Yeah, Beyonce was my generation. Yeah, I'm sure she was.
I know you've got visions of me being in front of the mirror singing Single Ladies. But yeah, I mean, when I was growing up, I'm a massive R&B fan. So from her days at Destiny's Child, and how big and influential she's, and such a pioneer in terms of R&B and music, and what she's been able to do, not just in music, but her ventures outside in acting, her clothing lines, and what have you. She's a real pioneer in terms of music for a lot of artists across the board. So she was a really big one as well. And then Oprah Winfrey, you know, Oprah had a show which is one of the biggest shows in America and has been of all time. And her books, her bestsellers. She's been affiliated with some of the big moments in terms of Black activism in America, and just what she symbolizes at a time where no Black woman had a TV show in America. You know, she just wasn't a Black woman that had a TV show. She had the biggest show. So Oprah Winfrey has, I mean, no matter where you are in the world, everybody knows who Oprah Winfrey is, you know, and she's managed again to carry herself with real grace and just align herself with a lot of the important things in the Black community in America and across the world as well. But just going back to that conversation on music, in terms of how you guys grew up, what sort of artists did you listen to, like in terms of Black artists when you were growing up?
Mine was when I first started listening to music. I think it was one of them, the CD cassette players or whatever they were. And I started listening to Jay-Z. I think it was one of my older cousins, and still to this day I listen to him now, even in the car this morning. Funny enough. Yeah, for me, not just even the music side. He's obviously got so far in that. He's well respected in it. Arguably the best. And you look at him now, he's into property, business, champagne. He's not just, his mindset is, and the stuff he gives back to the communities, the way he carries himself. He's a really educated man now. Coming from one of the roughest parts of America also. So I think it's certainly someone like him who can dominate the music industry for so long. It always helps when he's with Beyonce, but you'll enjoy that one as well. No, and then of course he's just a top class guy looking in from the outside.
I think it's really interesting that you say that, because that the first artist you mentioned is Jay-Z, because Jay-Z is my favorite rapper of all time. Yeah. Jay-Z is I've said this about a million times, but that is actually my guy. Yeah, so from going back to when I was younger, and I know like these days a lot of the kids now they like all these new school rappers and all that sort of stuff. But when I speak to these kids and I try to mentor these kids, I'm like, listen, Jay-Z is the daddy, mate. Yeah. And they're just like, oh, but what's he talking about? He's old. He's like 50 years old. I said, listen, you're going to listen to his most recent album or whatever it is. It still sounds better than anything else.
I think when you get older, for me, some of the lyrics that he talks about, the older you get, the more it makes sense to you. Do you know what I mean? Exactly. So that's why I think now, when you see some of the kids who are, 17, 18, whatever, listen to it, and they're like, but then when you get to 30, it's like, you understand what he's talking about. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So for me, that's why, like, even still to this day now, some of his, I know he doesn't bring as much out now as he used to, but yeah, the Black album and stuff, and some of the albums he's made is powerful.
Yeah. And I think the most important thing about his journey was that he didn't allow himself to be boxed in from the environment he came from. So even though he did grow up in Marcy in Brooklyn, and the Jay-Z that we saw when he was in his mid-20s to the Jay-Z he is now, is, like you were saying, is such a different character.
Yeah.
And the things he's aligning himself with. I know he's got a project at the moment that he's working on with Meek Mill, which is about prison reform.
Yeah.
He's trying to help people who have been who have gone to prison unfairly, helping them to get out, which is one of the things he helped Meek Mill with when he had his case. So he's.
I think they've already done a documentary. Meek Mill done a documentary, didn't he?
Yeah, Free Meek.
Yeah, Free Meek. That's it.
Yeah, which was a really good documentary.
Yeah,
so
I see that,
Jay-Z's brilliant at that. What about you, Ben? Who did you grow up listening to?
Even though Cress is a little bit older than me, I've got to agree. You think of Tupac, Biggie Smalls, Dre, Ice Cube, Mace. I could go on for ages. Like their music is just mind blowing. I think the music now is more, the lyrics are all over the place, and like the beats are good. The beats are good, fair enough, but you can't beat like 90s and early 2000s R&B. I don't think. I still listen to that, and I'd say that's my favorite. And I think like that music is timeless. Like you can play that in 50 years, you know, and you could even go back, like even with Bob Marley, and play his music in another 50 years time.
That'll never die out.
You know what I mean? So I think more modern to me is the R&B scene, and I think like that is timeless. And yeah, the rappers who, unfortunately, Tupac and Biggie have passed away, but I think, as you know, like their music is still being played, and people who actually understand music will really appreciate what they did in their industry. Brilliant.
Guys, that's been absolutely amazing. I just want to say that, and this is for anybody else that might be listening to this, is that, you guys are perfect examples of young men that when they work hard, they achieve what they want to achieve. And I would like to encourage, young people, young Black people, to see you guys as beacons of that. And we actually just thank you for all your support and for being ambassadors of our equality and our diversity at Strand at West Ham. You guys are obviously very, very knowledgeable about Black people that have influenced you throughout your career, whether that is in sport, in music, in culture, and what have you. And yeah, we'll just thank you so much for your support.